Hello everyone, how are you all? So today, in this session, we will study the next topic in Python. We will study list in this session. So let's start quickly. So basically, to know about lists, let's try to understand what is the concept of a collection. A collection is nothing but multiple items stored at single place. So like let's take example of a variable. In a variable, you cannot save multiple values at a single time. You can override the values or you can modify the value or change the values, but you cannot store multiple values, which is one limitation of variables. But there many times there are requirements that you want to store multiple items in a single variable, in a single identifier or a variable. So that is possible with the concept of collections. So collections allow you to store multiple items in a single identifier. So the types of collections which are available in Python are tuples, sets, dictionaries, and lists. Today in this session, let's understand lists, what lists are, how to declare them, and how to use them, uh, which functionalities are possible with the list. So basically, a list is nothing but a data structure used to store many values of different data types in a sequential manner. So list identifiers are known as objects because they can store multiple values. The list objects, they can be of a single class if the values stored inside that list are belongs to the same data type. They can be of different classes also. So remember the difference between list object and a variable. A variable does not belongs to class, whereas lists belong to a class. We will explore this concept when you will study objects and classes, but for now remember, you cannot call identifiers which declare list as variables. They are objects, you can call them as objects. So see, like uh, we have studied strings. So in string, there is indexing, and in that you can assign address. The address is assigned to each element of a string. Similar to strings, lists also can store values of different elements, and the address is assigned to each element. For list indexing starts from zero, and it is goes on until the last element using positive index. If you want to access the items of list from the end, you can use negative index, which the last item will you can access with index -1, second last with index -2, and so on. So this is the basic example which will create a list. Basically, you can create empty list also if you don't know which items to add in the list initially. So this syntax will create empty list. So remember, creating list is very similar and very simple. You have to just use opening and closing brackets, and you have, if you want to add items and give a separate each item by comma. So now let's take example. A list can be like a list of objects can store data of many types. So let's take this example. Here, integer values, string values, and floating point values are stored inside a list object. So important topic you have to remember about lists is that lists are mutable, means you can change values, elements of list anytime. It's not possible with strings, but lists are mutable and strings are immutable. So this examples, if you try to execute, so see, this is a variable, it has value banana stored inside it. If you want to modify a value at index 0, and if you try to execute this statement, it will give error because strings are immutable. But on the other hand, this is a list. How you will know this is list? Because that there are many items added into this list inside square brackets. So if you print this, you will get this output. But when you will try to modify item at index 2, if you write this statement and execute it, you will not get it any error, but you will see this as the output. So lists are mutable. And now these are the functions which work very similarly like they work for the strings. So all of you know, length gives the length of a string or length of a list, the number of elements inside list as a output. In operator is used to traverse to the list, and slicing and indexing slicing operator and indexing function works the same way. Now you can copy a list into another list also. So now let's see the different functions which are available with the list objects to to add elements into a list. So the functions are append, extend, and insert. Append function will add elements from the end of the list. If you pass a list as an argument to append function, that whole list will be added as a single element using append function. If you want many elements inside a list as a separate elements into the original into the main list, then use extend function. This function, even you pass a list containing many elements, this function will add each element separately, and insert function will add each element at this specified index position. So these are the examples here. So this is the original list which has three values, and if you use append method, okay, and if you pass a list as a as a value, then remember this append function will add this whole list as a single element. And the extend function, what it will do, if you pass a list as argument to add into this list, this function will add these two elements and not as a list. So this is the difference between append and extend. And if you want to add element at any position, you can use insert function. You have to pass uh, index and the value. So this insert function will add element, insert example at first index. So these are three different functions which are used for adding elements into the list at any position. If you want to delete elements from a list, then you can delete elements using a del keyword or a pop function or remove function and clear function. So using del keyword, you can remove index, like in this example here, this is the original list. And if you want to remove element at position at index 5, then just pass the index. After this, when you will print the list, you will see element 10, which is at fifth position, was removed. The remove function, it will take item it will take item number or value, and it will remove it from the list. So here the remove function pass the item number or the item value. Like here example, this remove function will not return anything. Even the del keyword also will not return anything. This remove function will remove this item from the list. So this was the list, and after applying remove function, this item was removed from the list. Pop function, what it does, if you specify index, then this function will remove index from this position. So here, if you specify index 1, then this function will remove element and the index 1. Now in this list, element at index 1 was 2, and it will return that value also, so which is stored here in variable a. So this value you will receive back, and the list after removing element at index 1 will be this. The clear function will clear all the elements, so it will return an empty list. So these are the examples. And now study the concepts of tuple. So tuple is another data structure which is available to use within the Python. Tuples are in many ways similar to lists, but see, lists are mutable, whereas tuples are immutable. Immutable means you cannot change the value of value of elements inside a tuple. There is only one exception is that a tuple can contain any values. Like a tuple can contain only integer values, only string values, or it can contain combination of integer, string, and list values also. To declare a tuple, you have to declare. Generally, it is preferred to declare all the elements of a tuple inside round brackets. And see, there is only one exception to the tuple, which is that you can modify elements inside a tuple which are mutable. So like as I said, lists can be a part of tuple, and you can change the values of lists, but you cannot change values of numbers and strings inside a tuple. So to access elements inside a tuple, you can use slice operator or index, and it will give you the desired output. So now let's see the different functions which. So now explore lists with some practical examples. So here a list is created, and this list object has these many elements. If you print this, now this will be the list. A list can contain other list as its single element. So if you execute this statement, now a new list will be added as a single element into this list. If you want to add elements using multiple lines, then this is the syntax. You just have to press enter after a line, and see, indentation doesn't matter when you are entering elements inside a list. So this new list will be created which is having these values. Now this mixed list object, it has inputs as these many elements. So see, it has inputs as integers, strings, another list, and even function also. So if you print this statement, it will return the output, the different elements which are there, and this len function will give you the total number of elements. So here in this list there are 5 elements at index 3 there is another list, and at index 4 there is a function. But length will return the total number of elements starting from 1. But remember, lists start with 0. Indexing from list starts with 0. So this will return mixed list. This length function, if you pass index 3, it will return the length of element present at index 3. So here, if you execute, you will receive length as 6. This will print the length of index present at element 1, which has 5. Now, C, you can use minimum function and maximum functions to find out smallest value and largest value in a list. Index function works with the list. This function will tell you the index which you specify here. So index function has three arguments: element, beginning and end. Element argument is compulsory, beginning and end. If you don't provide these arguments, list will traverse, this index function will traverse the entire list starting from beginning till the end. So let's say if you have to identify which is the index, at which index the element 2 is present, if you execute this function, you will see it is present at index 2. Now if you want to present the index of this 2, then you can pass, let's say, this index which is at index 2. So now this index function will start traversing the list to identify first occurrence of element 2 from the index 2. And now here the index, this 2 is present as fourth index. So if you execute this, this will be the output. Count function will return the number of times a element presents in the list. So like here this 2, if you execute this function, it will tell that 2 is present 3 times in the list. Now so uh, as I told you, many functions like in, slice, del, they work similarly for strings and lists. So here this slice function works exactly the same way. This function, this slice operator, it will traverse the entire list because you have not specified at the beginning and the ending index. So by default it will traverse the whole list. So all of you know, if you pass values like this for from 1 to 4 to this function, it will return the element starting from first index to the third index. It will not include fourth index, element at fourth index. So if you execute this function, you will receive this output. Okay. Again, this function you can use to assign values. Okay. Now, if you execute this function, this is the list and it has these many values. If you want to change the values from index like first, second, and third, this is possible with this operator. And after executing this statement, you will receive this output. Now, lists can expand or shrink automatically depending on the number of items you are assigning to it using the slice operator. So let's take example this words list. This list has initially 8 items. Okay, but if you try to replace items from first index to the third index with these arguments, now this, after executing this statement, there will be only one element added as a are and other elements after they are adjusted. So this way lists expand or shrink automatically. Now see what is the when you have to use list as when you pass objects of a list without using slice operator, when you don't use slice operator and try to add elements inside a list. So basically assume this is your original list. Okay, this is your original list, and if you now try to add another list at index 1. Now, without using slice operator, if you just provide the index here, you will get now a list X modified like this at index 1. There will be the new whole list added as a single element. But what if you want to add these three elements from this list as a single element? Then you have to use um, page down. Yeah. So then you have to use this syntax, like you have to pass the index, and with this, if you try to add the elements, then these different elements will get added at first index, second index, third index, and so on. So this is the difference between passing a single subscript and using slice operator. Next, slice operator can create a complete copy of another list using this syntax. So like in this example, this is the original list. If you want to copy entire list into another list object, use this syntax and it will copy entire list. Let's execute this. Now, if you have to remove elements from a list, then you can use slice operator also for deleting the elements. In this case, just if you pass the index and after that create, pass the empty list. So here, so now explore lists with some practical examples. So here a list is created, and so now try to understand how the nested lists work. So here this list is created. So see, at first zeroth index and first index, there are single elements. The third element, which is spanning from here to here, has another two lists nested inside it. So this will be the third element for this list, and this will be the fourth element. Now let's see how to access items from the nested list. So if you try to print this whole list, all the elements of this list, this was the list. But if you want to identify which element is present at index 2, this whole element is present at index 2. Now, if from this list you want to identify at index 2 which element is present at index 3. So if you execute this example, this element, this complete list from 7 to this fourth, you will receive as output. Now, if you have to access elements from this list, use add another square brackets, and this function, this command will return second, third, and third. So here this list is present at index 3. So if you execute this, you will get it. And if you have to access this number, this 100, write index 0, you will receive it. So this way, indexing functions works for the uh, you have to use indexing for accessing elements of a nested list. Now let's take example of how to use append function, extend function, and index function to add elements into the list. So as we have seen, append function will add element, be it a single element or a list of element, as a single element only. So in this case, just try to execute this statement. This is furniture list which has only this three value. Now if you use append function and try to add these many items from a single list, then remember the append function will add this whole list as a new element. So if you execute this, you will receive this output. And now see, element at index 0, first, second, and third. And extend function, on the other hand, adds elements separately. So let's take example, these are two lists, A and B. Both has 4 elements. If you use extend function to add elements of B separately into the list A, extend function will do it. If you execute this, you will receive this output. Now there is uh, Now just try to remember, if you try to append an element to a non-existent list, it raises an error exception. Okay, so now let's see examples of how to use different methods which deletes elements from the list. So basically, a pop method is used to remove elements from the list. So let's take example here, like this is the original list. Okay, this will print the original list, and if you use pop function, you have to pass the index to this function. When you will pass the index, this function will return the value present at this index. So if you execute this code, you will see this list. So element at index 2 is 3, and this was the list. Now when you don't pass any argument to the pop function, then at that time, uh, sorry, I have to then that time it will remove the last element. Or otherwise, if you pass any value, then like let's say example index 1, that time it will remove element at index 1. So like we have seen, if you do not provide any index, it will remove the last element, and if you pass index 1, it will remove this value. So if you execute this, this will be the list. Now a pop function takes argument as an index, and it returns the value present on that index. Remove function takes argument as an element. So let's try to use remove function here, how it works. So let's take example, this is the list, original list, which has say these many values. And remove if you want to remove element 3, then pass it as a argument, and let's see what happens. So the original list, it has 8 values, and it has 9 values, and now this list, it has 8 values. So this has deleted 3 at the first occurrence. Okay, so remove function takes argument as an element, and if there are more than one elements present in the list, it will remove the element which occurs first in the list, if when it traverses it from start to the beginning. So we have seen here there were total 9 elements, and after using this remove function, now the list contains only 8 elements. Now this del keyword you can use to remove uh, items from a list. So you have to pass name of the list after this keyword, and then if you just provide one index. So let's take this example, like this is a list, and if you execute this statement, original list has 6 elements, and if you have to remove element at index 1, then after this statement, it will remove this element and you will see a list. So see, second element which was at index 1 was removed. You can use del operator to remove subscript also. So you can use a del keyword, and in list if you use slice operator, so with del keyword, if this is your original list which has 6 elements, this slice operator will remove elements one, first, second, and third, and the new list will have only 3 elements. So if you execute this command again, so see, this was the original list, and after using this del keyword and passing the slice, using the slice operator, you can remove a subscript. So either you can, using del, you can remove a single element or a multiple elements, but okay. So now start. Let's see examples of how to use different methods which we can, which deletes elements from the list. So basically, a pop method is used to remove elements from the list. So let's take example here. Like, this is the original list. Okay, this will print the original list. And if you use pop function, you have to pass the index to this function. When you will pass the index, this function will return the value present at this index. So if you execute this code, you will see this list. So element at index 2 is 3, and this was the list. Now when you don't pass any argument to the pop function, then at that time, uh, sorry, I have to, then that time it will remove the last element. Or otherwise, if you pass any value, then like let's say example index 1, that time it will remove element at index 1. So like we have seen, if you do not provide any index, it will remove the last element, and if you pass index 1, it will remove. So now start how sort operation work with the list. So the sort function, it takes list as a, it sorts list in ascending order by default. So if you have to see how it will work on the numbers, let's say assume this is a list which has 5 integer elements, and if you apply sort function to this list, it will print all the elements in ascending order. Now let's see how strings are sorted when you apply sort function. So in this case, see, this is the list which has 4 string elements. Now if you try to apply sort function in this string, let's see what happens. So now you can see the output. So the string is sorted in the correct order. But now just do some changes here in the alphabets. Just change the case of the alphabets here, and now see what will be the output after applying sort function. So if you try to perform sort in string which has like uppercase and lowercase characters, the elements which are in mixed characters, so now you will see the output. Now here the output is correct, but I will do one thing now. Instead of okay, now I have changed the sequence, and now if you try to execute sort operation in this string, so now you will see the result is not correct. The reason, because sort function doesn't sorts in correct order if some characters are in uppercase and some in lowercase. So to do that, first you will need to convert all characters into proper lowercase, and then you can perform sort in these strings. So here I will erase this and will execute again. So this is the original string. Now on these strings, this lower function will convert each element into lowercase, and now this will be the new list. If you execute these two statements, you will get string like this. So let's execute these two statements, and now this is the original list. Now after, when you will apply sort on this list, and now when you will apply sort on all elements which are in lowercase, it will give you the correct output. So here in this case, this is the correct output. So this way sort function works. So remember, when you will use sort function, you have to convert all strings into lowercase before applying the sort function to the list elements. And now if you want to sort list in descending order, then use the reverse element, the reverse argument of this function, and this argument will do the, and this argument will sort the list in descending order. So if you execute this, so this is the use. So now let's see few examples of tuples, and then uh, we will end this session. So here, how to declare a tuple. So to declare a tuple, you have to write values in parentheses, so or angular brackets. Remember, you can declare tuple without writing values in parentheses also, but then the sometimes it will be difficult for Python interpreter to identify whether the object which is created is a tuple or is a variable. So best way is to declare values of tuple inside the parasynthesis. And see, you can perform a few operations like in operator, addition, concatenation operator and multiplication operator. They work the same way like they work on the strings for the tuple. So basically tuples, they are what, they are immutable, but they are only mutable, but the exception is that they are mutable only if it is allowed. So let's say how to use in operator on this tuple. So in this case, so this will be the tuple. So in operator will give you all the values. Now if you have to access value at the 0th index, execute this statement and it will give you the output. Execute this value. So this slice operator will return by default all the elements inside the tuple. Now in this tuple, if you have to access third element and uh, third element and the character present at the fourth position. So basically this is 0, 1, 2 and 3. This is the third element and the character which is present at position is fourth index is E. So this will return the value E. So this concatenation operation, it will work for like strings. It will combine values of two tuples. So if you see, this is the use of concatenation operator. Now when you say tuples are immutable, th- tuples are immutable. They are mutable only when it is allowed. So like in this case, this is a list and all of you know lists are mutable. So you can change value here in this tuple. So let's say this is 3 of 0 and you can assign value, another value to this original value. Like here it's Hindi and you can replace it with English. And if you execute this, you will see this. But see, you cannot do this here. So now you have an error. Why? Because this is numeric value and numeric values are immutable. So that's the reason this is not allowed. Yes. So even if we do some changes like ABC, okay, and if you try to change the value, so still it will give you the error. But let's say, assume if you want to assign 3 of 1 and if you want to assign value as Python, then it will execute the code. So I hope all of you understood what is why where tuples are immutable and where you can change them. So this is all for today's session.